I'm Lisa Stone. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Parenting Aces. Welcome back to the Parenting Aces podcast. I'm so glad that you decided to tune in this week. I am back from some crazy traveling. As you'll know, I was at the US Open for a few days, and right after getting back from there, I had the opportunity to travel to Russia and to Belarus with my mom for totally personal travel, totally personal vacation, but it was an incredible trip, and I'm so happy to be back. This week's podcast that you are getting ready to listen to was recorded prior to my trips, so keep that in mind as you listen. But I want to welcome Todd Widom back to the show. Todd has been on several times in the past, and recently he and I have been exchanging emails about some different things going on in the tennis world, and specifically having to do with online coaching and all of the online marketing that's being done by various coaches and academies. And so we decided we're going to put together a little series of podcasts for y'all on this topic. And the first episode is today, and we are going to tackle the issue of the business of the tennis business. Todd has a really unique perspective on this as a coach himself, but also as someone who came up through the juniors and still consults with his own junior coach as a mentor now that Todd is running his own coaching facility. And so I think you have a lot to learn from him this week, and I look forward to our future episodes in this series. But for now, sit back and relax and enjoy the wisdom of Todd Widom. I'm so happy to be back with Todd Widom. Todd, it's been quite a while since we've chatted, so thanks for coming back on the show. I'm glad to have you.
Thanks very much, Lisa. I'm very excited to have another excellent show with you.
Well, we always have good conversations, so I anticipate this will be another one of those. And I think the subject matter is one that is of interest to a lot of people out there, especially parents who are shelling out the dough for lessons and drills and tournament coaching and all of those things. And that is the business side of tennis, be it an individual coach or an academy. But really, we're going to dig into and delve into how these entities function from the business side and things that parents need to understand when making that choice of where to take their kid.
These are all great topics. Many people are searching for new areas and new places to either move or move their child to, and this should be an excellent show about what the business side of tennis is, and people need to be very aware where they're going to be spending their precious dollars.
For sure. And what's so interesting is, the internet is a fabulous source for information on a variety of topics, obviously, and tennis is one of those. You can find just gobs and gobs of information online, whether it's YouTube videos or various websites or discussion forums about tennis and tennis development and how to teach a forehand and the mental side of the game. And so I think it's really important to hear from you as a coach who is part of the online community about how people are positioning themselves online and what maybe some of the buzzwords are or buzz phrases are that we as consumers need to be aware of and maybe ask some additional questions of.
Well, to start, there's tons of information on the internet, whether it's in my mind, whether it's good information or maybe not so good. From a parental perspective, and many parents that don't know much about tennis, they may be trying to teach their kids or copy some things that they see online. And what I can tell you is each and every child is different. Their bodies are different, their minds are different, their background of their training is different. So they all come from different backgrounds. So, the cookie cutter mold for someone that is trying to teach online lessons, that they have the path to the future, and this is the way you need to hit a forehand, this is the way you need to hit a backhand. To me, that's not right. And as the U.S. Open is going on, each and every one of these players all have different backgrounds. They all have different body types, and they may all strike the ball a little bit differently. They all strike the ball obviously incredibly well, but they all hit the ball different. No one has the same techniques. And so the cookie cutter mold, to me, it doesn't work. And I can tell you, I've trained kids here in South Florida for 7 years, and many times without them even telling me, I can watch their techniques, and I can know right away who has trained them, because I've trained certain players and many players from these certain areas and academies and coaches, and they're teaching all the same. And to me, that's wrong. The way that I was trained, being 5'10", 5'11", was completely different than someone else I was training with that was 6'4" or 6'6". I mean, they're two totally different animals. So the online instruction may work for one or some, or maybe not even working at all. But the cookie cutter mold, and this is the right way, and this is the path to the future, and I got the magic pill and everything. That's just you're dreaming.
So, I mean, from the parent side, you do a Google search for tennis coach, and I mean, there are a gajillion pages that pop up. When I'm looking at a coach's or an academy's website, some of them are pretty impressive. They list credentials, I was an ATP player or WTA player. I've coached, X number of kids to number one or to D1 scholarships. And those things may be true, but they may be true in the most general sense. And when we start kind of digging down into what that means to say I was an ATP or WTA player, or I coached kids to D1 scholarships, what are some of the questions we need to ask about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, those are very general answers, and there's a lot of fantastic marketing schemes, and I look at them periodically, of the websites that are, in South Florida and around the country, and some of the players that are listed are players that I competed with or I did extensive training with, and some of the people on the websites I've never heard of. So, from a parental perspective, some of the questions are, how long did you train this player for? Where did they start? And then where did they end up? What are your credentials? I mean, if a pro is walking around saying that he was an ATP pro, I mean, what does that really mean? I mean, I was an ATP pro, and someone ranked 1,000 in the world could say that they were on the ATP tour or WTA tour. So, what does that really mean? And then, I keep seeing I was a hitting partner for this person or that person. So you were paid to hit some balls with these players. So does that mean that you were coaching them? No, that does not mean you were the coach. That means, you were the hitting partner. So you're qualified to hit a tennis ball. You're not qualified to be coaching. So the parents, they need to, they really need to do their research. I've had phone calls over the years saying, I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and, I haven't really seen any results, and the parents are not happy, and they're panicking, and they want their children to go to great colleges, and they really thought it would turn out much better than it did. And we can go on and on and on. So, the marketing of many websites are very strong. I look at them and say, wow, this is really good. And it could be people that I've never heard of. So then, I start doing some research, and, maybe it's truthful, maybe not so truthful. The parents, they need to do their research. They need to ask questions. They need to talk to, previous clients of these certain systems or academies. And, you're making an investment in your child's future. And at the very least, if they're going to be, spending all this time on the court and everything, there needs to be results and there needs to be goals and it needs to be mapped out. And there's a whole process that you go through so that, these goals and dreams can become a reality.
And let me just say, it is super easy to pull somebody up on the ATP or WTA website and see exactly where they were, what they did, how many matches they won, what tournaments they played, et cetera, even prize money. You can see the prize money. So, for somebody to claim they were on tour, like you said, they could be ranked 1,000 plus. Yes, they may have played in a couple of tour events, and so they can, legitimately make that claim to have been on the tour. But what does that mean in reality? Were they playing major tournaments, or were they playing, the smaller events, or, what is their history out there, and how does that translate to their ability to actually coach your child?
Right. And to me, that's the most important thing. What you just said was, how can they translate that to coach your child? There are many, many phenomenal players that end up coaching, and they have maybe a great career in tennis, and they were great professionals, and then they want to get into the coaching arena, and that's a whole different ballgame. The way that you communicate, the way that you can translate information. There's many different aspects to coaching, and I've learned that over the 7 years that I've been coaching, and I've had a lot of different personalities to deal with. I've had a lot of different, techniques to deal with. I've had a lot of different parenting situations to deal with, and so, it's really relating to, that individual player and trying to get the most out of that player, and and make sure that you understand the goals and the dreams, and make sure that is realistic, and then you can work on improving their games and helping them improve. But in terms of having a coach who was a great player, I mean, that's great. They could hit tennis balls with you. That's good. But could they maybe fix something that needs some tweaking or needs some fixing? And can they relate to the player? And and there's many other aspects to the job other than just hitting balls. I mean, I could go and hit with my students all day long. I mean, I did play on the ATP tour. I was pretty high ranked, and I can hit with my students all day long and never give them any information. And I'm not sure that would be so beneficial to them. But they could say, well, I hit with Todd for 5 hours today, and it was great. But I don't know if that's always what exactly what they need. It may be what some need. Just depends on what they're working on at the moment. But that's really rare. I haven't had cases where I've only needed to go out and hit a bunch of balls. That would actually be quite easy.
Right. Well, so let's talk about this business piece of things. There's a wide variety in the prices that coaches charge and academies charge, some upwards of $1,000 an hour for coaching, which just seems insane to me, but it's out there. I've heard stories of people who have gone to Nick Bollettieri, and I love the man. He's an awesome icon of our sport. But somebody told me they paid $5,000 for a private lesson for their child with Nick Bollettieri. I'm hard pressed to see how that makes any sense. I'm curious to hear your take on that.
Well, my take on it is, do you want a celebrity tennis lesson, or would you like, a tennis lesson that may help your child for their future, or, what are you really looking for? In terms of the numbers for a tennis lesson, each and every environment could be different, depending on the credentials and where they're located and all those different things. Is a 1 hour tennis lesson going to change your child's life? No, it's not. I mean, they could maybe tweak something up, but it takes thousands and thousands of repetitions the right way for something to be fixed or something to be developed. And I can tell you that, because I've done it, and I've done it with kids, because really my business started in South Florida of children that, were late in the ball game, and the parents were, unhappy with the results, and now they're becoming juniors and seniors in high school, and they need to go to a good college, or they want to go to a good college, and they need to have results, and it needs to happen in a timely fashion. And so really the only way to fix up maybe some of the habits at that age is you spend a lot of hours with the child. And I'm talking 4 or 5 hours a day with that child, fixing and fixing and fixing, and continuing to have repetitions over and over and over again the right way, so that you can develop good habits, and they can go to, a college that they would really like to go to, and then they can go have a great 4 years of college tennis. But if you think that there's some magic dust or pill or whatever, or some magic lesson with this one or that one, and it's going to change your child's tennis career, then you were just sold a bill of goods. And, they're very happy to take your money, and you can have a nice little 1 hour experience. And, they're hoping that you'll come back and take another one. But, serious tennis players, it's kids that I deal with that are high performance, serious kids. I spend 5 hours a day with these kids, and there's really no other way for them to progress at such a rapid rate than if you're not spending that kind of time with them. Now, they are homeschooled, so if it is after school, then it's 2 or 3 hours after school, very, very high discipline, a lot of repetitions, a lot of physical workouts, and then you can start to see some really good results. But a 1 hour lesson, at any price, is, maybe you can get a nice little perspective, and they can give you a little assessment of where the child is at, but it takes tons and tons of repetition and hours to see things fixed or changed, or, and then to see them in tournaments where there's pressure involved is a whole different animal as well. So, and I can tell you, so I've had students that, have come to me very late in the ballgame, and they've needed things fixed. And I can tell you it's taken those amount of hours every single day, and for it to be cleaned up and basically, fixed for tournaments, and they show it in tournaments, it takes 6 to 9 months to clean that up. It's not taking a 1 hour tennis lesson here and there or whatever. That's you're just padding the pocket really of the tennis pro, and he's happy to take your money. If you want my honest opinion, that's not going to do much.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's, there is something to be said for having the experience of taking a lesson with a quote celebrity pro. It's just something to add to your kind of resume of tennis. And these are things that I've done in my tennis years, so it's kind of cool. But yeah, some of the prices that these celebrity coaches are charging is it's just crazy. But they do it, they get away with it. People are continuing to be willing to pay it. So more power to them, I guess.
Yeah, hey, I mean, listen, if people are willing to pay it, then that's great. I mean, I've had kids and parents come to me, and then they've wanted me to give them an assessment of where their child was at. And I'll spend a couple hours with them, and I'll go over everything, from their techniques to how they can construct tennis points, and, and how they move and what kind of shape they're in. And I'll test out, all the different avenues. So for them, they really think that's a worthwhile investment, whether they want to train with me or not on a full-time basis, but at least they're getting a truthful assessment, kind of where their child is at, so that, for them to spend those couple hours is very valuable, so, but, in terms of a celebrity lesson, I mean, there's really, it might be a cool experience to spend an hour or so, with this one or that one, but, in terms of improvement or development, I'm not so sure, there's no, it's not rocket science, the tennis. Some make it sound like it's rocket science, but I can tell you, because I played at a pretty high level of amateur and professional tennis, that it's not rocket science, but it takes a lot of very, very tough hours and a lot of great repetitions to make it happen. And you have to go about the process in a disciplined manner each and every day, and then things may work out for your child.
Yeah, there's a lot of luck involved, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely luck involved. I mean, there's luck involved. There's a lot of hard work involved. There's money involved. There's pressure involved. There's, some people are relocating to different areas, especially South Florida. So then, there's expectations. There's a lot of things involved. Luck, yeah, there's luck involved, but you make your luck. I mean, the harder I was working, as if we want to just talk about amateur tennis, the more matches I was winning, the more disciplined I became, the more focused I became, the better my results were. But I was also in an environment where my coaches cared dearly for me and the other kids that they were training. I mean, they were into player development, and I had this discussion with the coach that trained me for 20 years. And he said, tennis has changed a lot. We were into player development, producing tennis players, not producing masses of children and filling tennis courts. We were into player development and producing the best players that we could, whether it was going to a mid-range college or a very high-level college or becoming a professional tennis player. And those are the things that I'm not seeing a lot in the country. Is we're producing masses of kids in big systems, and we have pros or some, whatever you want to call them, and they're feeding balls, and they could be chaperones, or it could be a daycare, and we're selling we're selling high performance, and I'm not seeing high performance kids. If you want my honest opinion, I'm not seeing high performance kids playing tournaments and everything. And so, those words are they're thrown around a lot. And quite honestly, I mean, I'm teaching many of the things that I'm teaching, the kids that I'm training on a daily basis, I learned at a much younger age. So, the backgrounds of the student and the foundations are rocky. So like I said, the way to fix that is you have to be there all day with the kids. They have to want to really train well and hard. And then they're going to start seeing results, but, it may take a little time because habits are difficult to break. And I'm not talking about just habits of forehands and backhands. I'm talking about habits of, physicality or even mentally, like kind of retooling their brain because maybe they were, taught this or that, or, just whatever the background of the student is. There could be many different things that need adjustments or fixing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so how do we discern the high performance coaches from the chaperones? I love that word. I'm going to adopt that in my writing now. The ones that are just out there basically hanging out with the kids, calling themselves a coach, but not really teaching anything. How do we as parents make that determination, especially if we aren't knowledgeable about the sport?
Well, if you're in a system with masses of children, it's like if you took your child to high school and say you could pay, the money for a private school and there's 15 kids in a class, or if you went to public school and now there's 40 or 50 in the class. So, it also depends on, how good the professor is and managing, the classroom and everything. But, I remember when I was being recruited for the University of Miami, there were going to be 20 kids in my classroom in college, or I could go to a state school and there could possibly be hundreds of kids. So that was very attractive to me, to have a classroom with fewer kids and the professors were available, after class to answer questions or help you with, some of the stuff that they were teaching. and the tennis is the same. I mean, if there's masses and masses of kids, I don't understand how that can be managed, and I've thought about this many, many times as I see, kids, coming from this place or that place or whatever. And I'm not sure how you manage that. And I don't know how you manage, all the different personalities as well. So, and what I mean by that is how you're meshing kids that are, really trying to, reach high levels of tennis, and then maybe some kids that really aren't interested in reaching high levels of tennis. And, it all depends on how serious they are and the environment that was created for that particular place. But, I mean, in terms of the business of taking on masses of students, you have a lot of things to take care of, and I'm not sure how that can really be done. But then again, it also depends on the goals and the dreams of the child and the parent. In terms of learning, basically in terms of learning, what I'm seeing and hearing is that, the particular coach will try to learn and teach in a lesson. And then in group settings, there's a lot of repetitions and everything. But that's the business side of tennis. Assistant coaches make their most money in teaching a tennis lesson. They don't make their most money in teaching groups. So if you really want to be learning from that particular pro, and you may like that particular pro, then you have to try to get them privately. It's going to cost you more money. And, the groups can be maybe for playing points or drilling and those types of things. But, it comes back to how good, that coach is at developing tennis players, but as well as how serious and the parent and then the player is about achieving their goals and dreams.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about this, because you bring up something that makes me think that we're really talking about two issues here. There's the business side of tennis from the coach/academy side, and then there's the business side of tennis from the family side, right? We've got two different economic structures at work here. You've got the parents trying to figure out how best to spend their tennis dollars, and you've got the coaches trying to figure out how best to maximize their time on court in terms of income. And, you said that where the coaches make the most money is in private lessons. That's also then where the parents are going to be spending the most money and going to be, that's going to take a bigger hit out of their overall budget. So from the parent side, you have to be able to figure out kind of a plan that works best for your child in terms of balancing the amount of money you spend on private lessons versus group lessons versus practice matches, which in theory should be free.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100% with what you're saying. With a good coach, they're going to map that out for you. And, obviously everyone's budget is different, but, each and every child is different as well. So, I mean, for me to speak about, masses of kids, it all depends on really what they need. And as a general statement, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, let me just throw this out there though. With a good coach is going to, like you said, map out for the family how many private lessons, how many group lessons, how many practice matches over the course of a week or a month or a 3-month period, let's say, that a kid needs, depending on what the child's goals are. And so as a red flag maybe to look for, if your child's coach is not doing that for your family, then maybe it's time to start asking some hard questions about whether you're with a good, qualified coach.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, this whole junior development, high performance tennis for juniors, it takes a lot of planning, and it takes a lot of structure, and it takes a lot of discipline on everyone's part to make it work. I mean, I get on the court every single day with the select kids that I train, and I already have a picture in my mind what they're going to be working on. They know exactly what they're going to be working on, and we're going to attack it for 4 to 5 hours every single day. And I'm monitoring every single minute of it. There's not an assistant that I'm wondering what he's doing, or that just got out of college and he needs to be coached to be coaching. That's not, that's not why people come to me. But in terms of choosing the right person and what is right for my child, that needs to be mapped out, and then based on their progress and based on their tournament scheduling and seeing how they're doing, and the coach needs to monitor and seeing if they're applying those things in tennis tournaments, and they have to go watch them and they have to monitor. And if there's a personal trainer that's involved, they need to talk to the trainer and say, hey, these are the things that this child needs physically for all this to work. And it's a whole management of the junior tennis player so that they can progress. And I tell my students that I train on a daily basis, as well as their parents, is that all these different things, whether it's physical, tactical, mental, nutritional, all these different elements, if there's something misfiring, then the results are going to suffer. And that's the brutal honesty of it. But also the kids that I train, their goals are very, very high, and they're trying to achieve some very big things. And I expect that. I expect for them to be achieving these things because I'm spending 5 hours a day with them. And so if I didn't expect these things from them, I wouldn't spend all these hours with them on a daily basis. I would maybe have a staff, and I would tell them what to do, and I'd go into the air conditioning, or I would go teach lessons on the side that would earn me more money. And but that's really not me. And I want to see these children do well, and I know exactly what it takes for them to do well, and I'm not guessing on what we need to be doing. And it's been made very clear to them and their parents what we're going to be doing.
I'm thinking about all of this and this whole notion of, how expensive it is to develop a junior player from beginning to, let's say, college, and the cost of traveling to tournaments, and the cost of lessons, and the cost of equipment, and this and that and the other thing, personal trainers, nutritionists, all of that stuff. And I'm wondering how much of that is a function of really good marketing by really mediocre coaches and academies.
Yeah, that's a good statement. I mean, what I can tell you is the coaches that I grew up with, 2 Argentine coaches, there was no doubt in my mind and my parents' mind that when you saw them working with junior tennis players and college players and the best tennis players in the world on the ATP and WTA tour, that they could develop. Okay. There wasn't a lot of marketing going on. You know what their marketing was? Their marketing was, sit right there and watch me train these kids, and then you'll understand why they're so good. That was the marketing, right? And I saw that from when I was 6 or 7 years old to when I retired from the tour at 26. You saw kids improving at a drastic rate, and they knew exactly how to do it. They knew the discipline and every day of what it takes to make it happen, as well as the students were serious and they wanted results. The parents were serious and they wanted results. So that was the marketing. There obviously wasn't, for my younger years of coming through junior tennis, there wasn't the internet and all that marketing. The marketing was, our kids are doing extremely well, and if you really want to see what's going on, we'll go watch a workout. That was the marketing. And
Right.
there wasn't a show put on. No one was tap dancing around because a client walked through the door that day. They were there producing players, putting in hours all day long. They didn't have a bunch of fancy pictures for a website. They were out there all day long. And really, and it's pretty funny, is that I've brought in my coach that I watched produce champions for 20 years and even before me, and I brought him in to help me with my students. And so they haven't heard, obviously, of Pierre Arnold, the one that I brought in, but their parents may have been asking around, and he's very well known in the area for producing phenomenal players. Is there a fancy website? No. Are there a bunch of pictures with a bunch of national champions and ATP champions and people that you've seen on TV play tennis? No. But you have to do your research, and there's a lot of great marketing schemes. They want to make money, and they're trying to bring in as many people as they can. And some are very, very polished, and they sound good, and they've worked for maybe other big academies, or they've worked for the USTA, and they've done a lot of work. And but it does not mean that they're doing a great job developing. It really, you have to do your research about it. And but what I've seen and things that I've seen on the internet is that it could be really tough to tell, who's doing a great job with the kids. But you have to ask around. You got to talk to previous clients, kids that are, maybe in college that came through some of these systems, and try to educate yourself the best that you can, because you're making a big investment, not only financially, but a lot of time and a lot of effort. And before you know it, the children will be going off to college, and you don't want to be looking back saying, oh, I made this mistake or that mistake, because some of the mistakes that I'm seeing, they're going to cost the kids dearly, and they may not realize it in the present moment, but they're going to realize it later on when the child is trying to get into a college or in college, and that's not always a comforting conversation.
No. And I mean, we've talked about that a lot on this podcast, about the fact that, the junior tennis years are we only have 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years at the most, really, to develop these kids if college tennis is the goal. And if you waste 3 months, 6 months, longer in a bad coaching situation, that's time that you never get back. It is gone. And I can talk from experience on this. I mean, it's heartbreaking to realize that your child's been in the wrong situation, or a situation that wasn't properly preparing them for the next level. And there's really nothing to do about it at that point except make the necessary change and move forward. You can't dwell on the fact that you've lost that time, but it feels awful when you realize it.
Yeah, I mean, these are these are some of the discussions I have. People have relocated to Florida, and this is how my systems got started. Was I'm one of the few guys in South Florida, if not the country, where there's an organized, small system, private coaching of kids that I want to coach on a daily basis. If I didn't want to spend my 5 hours a day with these kids, I wouldn't do it. And either would Pierre. And we're basically handpicking the ones that we want to spend our time with that deserve that, as well as their parents deserve that. But, like I said, if you want to fix something, it takes all these hours, and it's going to take 6 to 9 months to fix many, many habits. And I've done it with a bunch of players already in 7 years, and then they can be on their way to be doing some great things. And tough, it's grueling work, and it takes a lot of effort, obviously from the players, but from the coaches as well. I mean, I don't come out there and just hanging out in the shade and, just having a lovely day in South Florida. It's a lot of tough work, but there's a commitment on not only, the child's part and the parents' part, but from the coaches as well. It has to work on, from both parties, and then you can start to see some really great things. But, like I said, it really all depends what you want.
Well, we're talking about what parents need to be looking for in coaches and looking out for red flags and marketing schemes and all of that. You as a coach, because you're so selective with the kids you're working with, what are some of the things you look for in the kids and in the parents when they come to you and say, hey, Todd, I want to work with you?
Sure. I mean, there's definitely a couple of things. First of all, they have to want to learn, and it could be something that's super uncomfortable for them, but they have to want to learn, and they have to want to apply, and they have to want to, be out there, trying their best to do those things. Is it going to be easy? No. Is it going to be easy for me? No, it's not. I'm going to go through many, many hours with these kids. And, there could be many, many uncomfortable moments. And I can tell you that, no one has brought me, kids that are, superstars or, easy cases where I haven't had to put in tons of work into the kids, where they're so highly produced and I just needed to put them through a nice, easy workout and then make them feel good and they'll be on their way and they'll be a champion. Some of the cases I've had have been very difficult cases and highly stressful cases because of many of the things that they needed to work on and in a time frame that these certain aspects needed to be improved. So that those cases were tough. Some cases are a little bit easier, but in terms of what I'm looking for kids that are motivated, that want to learn, that want to apply the information, and then I'm very happy to be training those children. If they don't do those things, yeah.
How do you assess those things when they come to you?
Sure. One of the first things I do when a new student is thinking of coming to me, I take them and I put them through a workout on my own. You can call it a lesson, you can call it an assessment, whatever you would like. But I have my system of kids that I want to be spending my hours with, and I put them through a whole assessment, and then we speak about what their goals and dreams are and what they would like out of their tennis, and then their parents are there as well. And I want to make sure that everything is clear before I let really anyone into my system that I've worked so hard to produce and for it to be so special. And I've made commitments to the current kids that I'm training now, so they have to fit in very, very well. And it may hurt my pocket in the short term, but my happiness and what I've tried to produce here in South Florida is something special. And I've made commitments to the families of the kids that I train, and they have relocated to South Florida, some of them, and actually most of them. And so, I don't go back on my word, and they know that I'm going to spend many, many hours with them, and I'm going to help them be placed properly in college, and then I'm going to manage their tennis careers to the absolute best of my knowledge, as well as Pierre as well. So, those are really the things that I look for. If I think that it's someone that might not fit into my system, then that's a different discussion. They either need to maybe do private time outside of my system to maybe boost their level so that they can fit in, or unfortunately, I have turned away clients because, it just wasn't the right fit. What I run is not a tennis academy. It is not taking on every single person that calls me that can pay me money. So, that's how I do things, and it's very different. But that's the best way I know to maximize each player's ability.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, what are some specific things that have happened, maybe, with a kid or even with a family, with the parents, that have caused you to say, no thanks?
Well, usually it's mental. It could be, attitude problems. It could, so, I mean, unfortunately, I've had some parents admit to me that there's mental illness in the family, and so there's problems at home. So that, those are things that where it becomes very, very difficult. Or, if the attitudes of the player are not really good, then, there could be problems. And not only that, I don't know how I can recommend one of my students when I know that there's, serious issues mentally. So, I don't know college coaches that would, really like that for 4 years. So, but usually, I mean, anyone that's coming to me and they've seen, maybe some of my social media stuff, or they've gotten to know some of the kids that I've trained, they know that that's very serious, and there's a commitment on both ends, from the players and their parents, as well as from Pierre and I.
Mhm. Mhm. So let's get back to this whole notion of the bells and whistles and all the fancy, sparkly things that coaches and academies use to try and convince us to come to them. And what is how do you see this changing as a kind of paradigm for junior tennis? Because I feel like we've had several years now of all this, kind of the weekend certification, and now I'm hanging out my shingle and I'm a coach, and all of a sudden, I have all these credentials, even though I've never really coached anybody in my entire life, and I'm charging $100 an hour for your child to come work with me. This has been going on for several years now, and the result of that is, we're seeing more people, I think, dropping out of the game because of frustration, and fewer kids sticking with it for the long haul. And I think I feel like it's reached a critical mass, that it's time for the pendulum to start swinging back the other way, where we get back to having maybe a smaller number of coaches and academies out there, but the ones that are out there are really high quality. What do you see that we can do or that could happen in order for that pendulum to start to swing back toward the, quote, right direction?
I have no idea. Yeah, you want my honest opinion? I have no idea. There's no regulation. So I don't know if that's good or that's bad. It could be bad for some people that are paying money. In terms of is if the person is qualified, you have to do your research. Anyone can get a bucket of balls and say they're a tennis coach, and so that can be difficult for parents to understand what they're buying. I've had parents come to me and I say, who'd you work with, this or that, whatever. And, I know that those particular people had no background of tennis, and they learned tennis off the internet, and they're trying to earn a living at teaching tennis. So that's difficult. I mean,
Then you can look at Richard Williams as an example of somebody who knew nothing about tennis, learned it from reading books and watching videotapes, and produced 2 world champions. So, the flip side is it can be done, right? I mean, the odds are not in your favor, but it certainly can be done.
Well, sure. I mean, if you have 2 of the best athletes in the history of the United States, then maybe it could be done, right? You're talking about, and trust me, I have trained with some of the best tennis players to ever touch a tennis racket in this country. So, yeah, they're different. The Williams sisters are a whole different animal. They did have coaching. Obviously, their father was highly influential and everything, but they did have coaching. But in terms of world-class players, if you're a parent and you don't really have a tennis background, hey, it could be done, but I wish you luck. If you think you can take over and train your child, maybe without any credentials, to be doing that. I mean, I'm not going to become a doctor tomorrow. I understand fully what my coaches did with me and the process that they went through on a daily basis from when I was 6 to 26 years old. And I don't know how that would have happened with people or so-called coaches that did not have those credentials. And what they taught me, and the disciplines and the techniques and the physicality and how to play tennis and how to compete and all those different things, that's not happening from someone who doesn't have credentials and doesn't know the game inside and out. So, I mean,
so from your perspective, you think that without the accountability, that things really, we're hard pressed to see a change because nobody is really overseeing this aspect of the game that, anybody can hang a shingle out and call themselves a coach, whether or not they have the proper training and background to actually be an effective coach. And therefore, there's nothing to stop them at this point.
Right. I don't see that changing at all. I don't see how that's going to change. I started with a bucket of tennis balls and 1 student. I started working at an academy, and it really wasn't for me. And I took a huge pay cut, and I started with 1 student to try to do something very special. Did I know that I could coach or become a good coach? That's not for me to say. The results speak for themselves. So if the students that I'm training and the parents that are obviously paying for my services, if they think that those are satisfactory results, then they will continue to work with me. Did I know that my students would have great results? Did I know that they would go to the best schools in the country? Did I know that they would play very, very high in their lineups and that they would be exposed to some of the best, business people and hedge fund managers in the country because of their tennis? I didn't know that. I knew that I was going to come out every single day, work really hard with them, see what they needed to work on, and try my best to, see how well that they could progress. Did I have some of the best coaches in the world and in the country mentoring me through this? Absolutely. I still talk to them today. So I've had many hours of discussions with those individuals as well. One is the one that coached me for 20 years, who helps me with my students on almost a daily basis. And then there's a couple others as well. So do I know everything? Nope. I don't claim to know everything about tennis and how to manage it and everything. But my business that I run is based on results, and I understand that. A manager in Major League Baseball, their business is based on results. A manager, or a head coach in football, in the NFL, or in college football, it's based on results, and I expect my business to be based on results as well. So I'm not, being, some kind of mega businessman and used car salesman trying to bring in clients for no good reason and doing those types of things to fill tennis courts. I want clients that want to spend their day with me. I want to spend my day with them, and I want to see their child progress to the highest level that they can so that they can set themselves up for a beautiful future. Now, that future may be professional tennis. That future may be a great, college program, and then going on to have a fantastic job. That's what I do on a daily basis, and each one of their goals and dreams are different. But in terms of coaching, I didn't know, and if my results were not good, then I would probably start looking for other employment opportunities. But the results have been very, very good, and and I'm going to continue to do it to the best of my knowledge each and every day with these select kids, and that's what I do. Do I see the coaching changing in the United States? No, and quite honestly, the coaches that I grew up with and the type of job that they did not only with me but with many other students, I don't see that. So I'm not sure where American tennis is headed, and I'm just talking about this on really a local level. I mean, I don't travel around the whole country and start looking at a bunch of different tennis systems and everything, but I do see players at tournaments, and I can assess very, very easily what they need to be working on and the process it'll take to fix those things. And I remember working on many, many different things with my coaches going through my junior development. And I can tell you that the quality of coaching from what I've seen and the quality of the juniors that are coming out, it's a different level now. It's a much different time. And you can see it at the college level. We don't even need to talk about professional tennis, but we can see it at the college level where everyone is very concerned with foreign tennis players, coming in and taking scholarships and everything. That tells you what the quality is at this present time in this country.
So I really hate to do this, but I feel like we're going to end this conversation with kind of some bad news, which is things are not getting easier for tennis parents out there. In fact, they're getting more complicated because there are more and more, quote, coaches that may or may not be qualified to develop junior players. And therefore, the job of the parent becomes that much more difficult in assessing a coach's ability, assessing a coach's knowledge, assessing a coach's desire to actually develop your child as opposed to collecting a paycheck every time you come out there. And, that doesn't bode well in my mind. And I hope that at least the parents that are following along with Parenting Aces that are part of our community are at least getting enough education to make qualified choices when choosing their children's coaches and feel like they have the ammunition they need to go out there and choose the best possible coaches for their junior players.
I agree. I was very fortunate to be born and raised here in South Florida during a time where the coaches that my parents chose for me, they saw it right away. There was not any kind of hesitation at all of what I wanted out of my tennis and what the coaches were going to bring to the table. There was no drama. There was no questioning. There was nothing. It was, what should we do next? You need to do this, this, and this. And okay, perfect. And we did it. And I've had these discussions with Pierre as well, that basically I was just, given into his hands, and here, go ahead, see how good, Todd can be as a tennis player. And, there was 100% trust And that was it. Whether I was going to become, maybe a decent college player or a great college player, or maybe a phenomenal professional or a low-level professional, or whatever my goals and dreams were. But, the process was not really a complicated process, and about what should we do next? How good can he be? And, it was all managed, and there was truth. There was not a whole big selling game behind it. It was, we really think that he can become a great player, and these are the things that we need to do. No one has a crystal ball how good, your child can be, or maybe when I was developing as a junior player, no one has a crystal ball for that. And you go out and you try your best, but you need to be in the hands of someone who is well qualified and has done it before. But that takes a lot of research, and then you can try your best and go through the process of trying to make it happen. But if the one guiding the ship is not really doing the job, or you have doubts, then it's just not going to work out. It's not, and unfortunately, there's going to be some time wasted, and you can't recover that time, and then you're going to be scratching your head, and things won't be so smooth.
Right. Well, Todd, thanks so much for taking time out to talk with us again this week, and I look forward to our next conversation. We're planning a little series of conversations around the business of the tennis world, and I think Todd's a great person to offer us additional insights into that. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much, Lisa. I look forward to the next show.
Thank you. And to my listeners, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Parenting Aces. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Parenting Aces podcast, and that you'll continue tuning in each week as we try to find the best guests to give you the best information as you navigate your child's junior and college tennis journey. I want to just remind you that if you haven't already, please do subscribe to us on iTunes or Stitcher or iHeartRadio or Google Music or wherever you like to take in your podcast. And also, if you could share the podcast with your tennis community, that would be fantastic. We are currently seeking new sponsors for the podcast, and all the information on our sponsorship agreement is in the show notes, so please do check that out. And in the meantime, have a great week, and I look forward to catching you next time on Parenting Aces. I'm Lisa Stone, and you've been listening to the Parenting Aces podcast, for tennis parents, by a tennis parent. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to us and write a review on iTunes. For more information on navigating the junior and college tennis journey, visit us online at parentingaces.com. As always, a huge thank you to our sponsor, tennisballs.com.